The most profound betrayals don't come from strangers. They are curated by the people who taught you what love was supposed to be. Mine came in a beige hospital room that smelled of antiseptic and Drade. I was 35. My body hollowed out by a surgery to remove a tumor that had threatened to take everything from my twins and me. The last face I saw before anesthesia was my sister Celia's, a mask of perfect, polished concern. "We've got you, Leo," she whispered. "Family's everything." I woke up alone, not just alone, abandoned. The nurse avoided my eyes. My calls went to voicemail. 3 days later, a courier arrived with a single envelope. No card. It was a formal notice from our family's trust lawyer. My portion of our grandmother's inheritance, a life-changing sum meant to secure my children's future, had been legally relocated. The reasons cited: mental and financial incapacity due to medical crisis. The petitioner my father. The co-signer my mother. The executor who facilitated it all, Celia. They had used my vulnerability, my literal unconsciousness, to legally pick my pocket. I was destitute, facing a mountain of medical debt, with 2 babies depending on me. I crumpled on the floor of that hospital room, the paper in my hand feeling like a death certificate. But then, my phone lit up with a notification, a new email. The subject line: "For the boy under the pier." It was from an address I hadn't seen in nearly 2 decades. Attached was a single audio file. With trembling hands, I pressed play. And I heard my father's voice, clear as day, conspiring with Celia, plotting my financial euthanasia while I was under the knife. They had no idea my old phone, charging on the bedside table, had been recording. That's when the tears stopped. That's when the cold settled in. And that was the moment I knew, the real revenge begins now. If you're drawn to stories where the deepest betrayals are answered not with screams, but with silence and a plan, make sure you subscribe to this channel. The path from victim to architect is a dark and fascinating one. The world after the hospital had a different texture, a different sound. It was muted, as if I were moving through a thick pane of glass, watching the vibrant, chaotic life of New York City continue on the other side without me. The pain from the surgery was a constant, deep ache, a physical anchor to the betrayal. But it was nothing compared to the chilling void that had opened where my family used to be. My twins Ava and Ely were staying with my former nanny Mabel, the only person who had shown up without being asked. My apartment in Washington Heights, once filled with the clatter of blocks and the scent of warmed milk, now felt like a crime scene. Every corner held a memory of a life built on a lie, the lie that blood meant safety. The inheritance they stole wasn't just money, it was my grandmother's final act of belief in me, the black sheep, the dreamer who became a graphic designer instead of a lawyer, the single father by choice after a short, beautiful marriage ended by a car accident. It was the buffer between my children and the abyss. Now, the abyss was at the door. The email was my lifeline, thrown from a past I had compartmentalized as a sweet, painful dream. For the boy under the pier, only one person in the world had ever called me that: Kiana. When I was 17, a skeletal, sun-bleached kid running from a violent father and a complicit mother, I'd lived for 3 months in a makeshift shelter under the Coney Island boardwalk. I stole to eat. I was fading. And then Kiana, who worked the early shift at her aunt's soul food shack near the pier, saw me. She didn't ask questions. Every day she'd bring me a paper plate heaped with food: greens, mac and cheese, fried fish, cornbread, wrapped in foil. "Leftovers," she'd say, her voice soft but her eyes missing nothing. She was a year older, fierce, brilliant, heading to Howard University on a full ride. We'd talk for hours in the salty twilight. I fell in love with her steady hands, her laugh that sounded like defiance, her mind that saw a future so clearly. The night before she left for D.C., I kissed her, my lips salty from the sea and my own tears. "I'm nothing now," I whispered, my forehead against hers. "But I swear when I'm rich, when I'm somebody, I'll come back. I'll build you a house right on this damn beach." She'd smiled, a sad, knowing smile, and wiped my cheek. "Don't make promises to me, Leo, make them to yourself. Get rich, be somebody. For you." We lost touch, life shame, and the arduous climb out of poverty did its work. I thought of her often, a ghost of kindness in a cruel youth. And now, she had sent me the audio file. The attached note was brief. "Heard about your situation through the old neighborhood grapevine. Thought you might need this. The universe keeps records in strange ways. K." I listened to the recording 100 times. It was captured on the old phone I'd used as a voice memo device for design ideas. It must have been activated in my pocket or by a brush against the sheets. The clarity was haunting. Celia's voicey, his under: "It's done. The lawyer has the power of attorney documents ready. Dad, are you sure about this? It feels final." My father, Robert, his tone flat, administrative: "It is final. His judgment has always been clouded." That artistic life, those children without a proper structure, this tumor is just proof of a systemic weakness. The money is safer with the family, with you. You'll use it to build something real. My mother Eleanor. A faint whisper, he'll be so hurt. Robert, snapping, his hurt is a luxury we can no longer afford to manage. Eleanor. This is for the family's stability. Celia's real estate fund needs that capital to secure the Harbor Point project. It's a 10-to-1 return. Leo would have pissed it away on medical bills and crayons. Celia, fight. Robert. With what? He'll be recovering. He's broke, he has no allies. By the time he can stand up, the money will be deployed, generating returns that will, in time, provide him a modest allowance. He should be thanking us. The recording ended. I sat in the dark of my apartment, the ghost of Kiana's cornbread and my father's disdain warring in my senses. The betrayal was a multi-layered thing, financial, emotional, medical. They had diagnosed me as a liability and performed a fiscal lobotomy. But they'd made one catastrophic error. They'd left a witness. And they had no idea I now had a patron saint from my past, who had just handed me the murder weapon. Revenge, I decided, would not be a knife in the dark. It would be a slow, precise unraveling. I needed to become a ghost, and then a puppeteer. Mabel. A force of nature in her 70s, is for an extended stay upstate with her sister. You go handle your family business, child, she said, her eyes hard. Ava and Ely will know love and peace. You go make sure those people know consequences. I sold everything of value in my apartment, channeling the major funds into a single, sharp suit and a consultation with a forensic audio expert, who cleaned in time, stamped the recording for court admissibility. But court was a blunt instrument. I wanted a surgical one. Kiana's return email address led me not to a social worker or teacher, as I'd vaguely imagined, but to the website of Green Strategic Communications. She was a crisis PR manager, one of the best in D.C., specializing in protecting political and corporate reputations from scandal. Her photo showed a woman of formidable elegance, her gaze direct and uncompromising. I called her office, my throat tight, when her assistant connected us, and her voice came on the line, deeper, polished, but with that same bedrock of warmth. I almost broke down. The boy under the pier, she said, no question in her tone. I'm not a boy anymore. And I'm under a different kind of wreckage. I know. I did some digging after I sent that file. Your sister Celia Vega, the Harbor Point project. Your father, Robert Vega, the respectable tort lawyer. It's a nest of very clean, very sharp vipers. I have the recording. I have nothing else. She was silent for a long moment. You have me. And I have a particular set of skills for dismantling fatheads. Consider it a repayment with interest for all that cornbread. But Leo, this won't be a reunion. This will be a campaign, and campaigns require intelligence, strategy, and capital. I have the first two. We need the third. Capital. The word was a brick in my gut. Then I remembered my grandfather. My mother's father, Silas the gruff, retired longshoreman who had never liked my father. He'd been dead for 5 years. But he'd always told me, when the world gives you splinters, boy, you don't cry. You collect them, sharpen them, and build a damn weapon. On a desperate hunch, I went to the old Bronx neighborhood, to the dusty, family-run funeral parlor that had handled his services. Old Mr. Gioia remembered me. Your grandpapa, he said in his raspy voice. Tough old bird, left something for you. Said to hold it till you came asking about him, not your mother. It was a key to a storage locker in Red Hook. Inside, amid old fishing gear and cigar boxes, was a sealed tin. In it was $22,000 in crisp, old $100 bills and a note, for when they show their true colors. Bet they have by now. Go buy some splinters, Silas. It was my war chest. With Kiana guiding me remotely, we used it to hire a discreet, ex-military investigator named Rhodes. His task: find the soft underbelly of the Harbor Point project. Meanwhile, as I performed my own theater, I showed up at my parents' Westchester home, playing the broken, confused son. I let them believe their narrative, that I was defeated, seeking scraps. I recorded every condescending word. It's my father pontificating about financial Darwinism. My mother offering me a small loan, with the air of someone feeding a stray. Celia was harder. She studied me, her gaze analytic. You look thin, Leo. You should focus on getting well, not on things you never understood. Rhodes delivered. Harbor Point, a luxury waterfront development, was a fantasy. The environmental studies were falsified. The city council approvals were secured through a network of hidden favors and implied threats. The lead investor was a shell company tied to a notoriously litigious hedge fund, and Celia's fund was the shaky keystone holding it all up, using my inheritance as the crucial last-mile financing. It was a house of cards in a hurricane zone. Exposing it would trigger a cascade of lawsuits, regulatory hell, and financial ruin, but exposing it publicly would also destroy me. I'd be the disgruntled son, a liar. We needed a controlled demolition. Kiana's strategy was masterful. We don't release the recording. We use its existence as a phantom. We make them fear the sound of their own voices. She crafted a series of anonymous, tip-based inquiries from fictional journalists to the various parties involved in Harbor Point, vague, but citing, concerning audio evidence from a family member, regarding the project's integrity. The whispers began. Investor meetings grew tense. Celia started looking strained. The final stage required a stage. It was the Harbor Point Foundation Gala, a 5,000 plate event at the New York Public Library, meant to showcase Celia's triumph and secure the final commitments. It was where my family's new legacy was to be christened. Kiana flew in. Seeing her in person, in a sleek emerald gown, was like seeing a myth step into reality. She squeezed my hand. Tonight, the boy under the pier gets his beach, she said, her eyes glinting not with romance, but with battle lust. The gala was a cathedral of arrogance. Celia was radiant, holding court. My parents beamed, the proud monarchs. I moved through the crowd, invisible in well-tailored tuxedo, a ghost at their feast. Kiana worked the room like a diplomat, her credentials opening doors. She had engineered our final move. Rhodes, for an extra fee, had procured a direct link to the Gallister audio system. The speeches began. Celia took the podium, a vision of success. She spoke of community legacy and virtuous capital. As she reached her peroration, thanking her family for their unwavering support, Kiana gave me a nod. I sent a single text from a burn phone. In the audio booth, Rhodes inserted a device. Celia's amplified voice cut off. There was a second of dead air, a technical hiccup. Then, a different audio filled the great hall. Not the full, damning hospital recording. That was our nuclear option. This was a tactical strike. It was a clean, recent clip I'd captured on my phone during one of my pathetic visits. My father's voice, dripping with contempt. Harbor Point is about changing the skyline, Leo. It's not a kindergarten art project. Your sister understands scale. You never could. That's why your contribution had to be redirected. For the greater good of the family vision. The words hung in the air. The greater good. The re-context of the whispered journalistic tips, the meaning was unmistakable to the savvy crowd. Celia froze, her smile fossilizing on her face. My father surged to his feet, his head swiveling. He found me. I stood at the back, next to Kiana. I didn't glare. I didn't smirk. I simply looked at him, my expression one of calm, final detachment. I raised my glass a fraction of an inch in a silent, terrible toast. Then, Kiana stepped forwardly, just enough for Celia to recognize the formidable crisis manager from D.C., standing in alliance with the brother she'd betrayed. The message was sent, not in a roar, but in a devastating silence. I am no longer alone. I am no longer weak. And I have your measure. The unraveling was swift and merciless. The whispered fears became shouts. The next morning, the lead investor pulled out of Harbor Point, citing unforeseen ethical concerns. The city announced a review of the permits. Lawsuits from minor investors followed. Celia's fund imploded under the weight of margin calls and scandal. My father's law firm, fearing collateral damage, quietly forced him into early retirement. The family's social capital evaporated. I never released the full hospital recording. I didn't need to. Its potential existence became a permanent sword over their heads, a ghost in every room. Through a lawyer, I offered them a choice. Quietly sign over the full value of my inheritance, plus damages, into a trust for my twins, or I would take the recording and the full evidence of the Harbor Point fraud to the SEC and the New York Times. They signed. They had no leverage left. The money is in a trust now. Ava and Ely will never know want. I bought a small modern house not on Coney Island, but on a quiet stretch of Long Island Beach. The salt air is the same. Kiana and I are not a fairy tale. We are something better, allies. Partners in a different kind of building. She visits often. We walk the shore. Two survivors who understand the cost kinders and the price of vengeance. My family exists in a muted, shamed parallel universe. I hear vague rumors through the grapevine of bitterness, of blame, of a crumbling marriage. I feel nothing. The revenge was never about hurting them. It was about reclaiming the narrative of my life from the people who tried to author my downfall. They saw me as a failed investment, a line item to be zeroed out. I became the auditor. And in the clean, cold balance sheet of my new life, their accounts are permanently, irrevocably closed. The boy under the pier finally built his house. He built it out of splinters, and it is unshakable.